iRacing Verizon IndyCar Series will head itself to the deep south, to Alabama, to the Barber Motorsports Park for round number 6, the halfway point of the iRacing Verizon IndyCar season. It'll be next on your screens on YouTube Live, 3Spot TV and iRacing Live in just a couple of moments' time.
Team racing allows multiple iRacing members to team up and race together, just like in real-world endurance series. Teammates can share driving duties, spot for one another, or be a crew chief. Team racing is free, both to join a team and to create one. Each teammate races on his or her own computer from wherever they want to. Your teammates can be anywhere in the world, and changing drivers mid-race is as easy as a click of a button. iRacing features team endurance events ranging from just a couple of hours to 24 hours in length. So, if you fancy taking part in an iRacing endurance race in the future, you can learn more about team racing on the teams page on the member website.
Well, hello there, and good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you may be out there on this great planet. This is going to be round number 6 of the iRacing Verizon IndyCar Series. This week, we're at the Barber Motorsports Park in Alabama, USA. I am Connery Maddock, and next to me in the commentary booth will be the one and the only Jack Styles. Qualifying is well underway, and Jack, Barber Motorsports Park, still a newcomer to the IndyCar Series, only introduced to the IndyCar calendar in 2010, but it is a track that can throw up a good couple of surprises.
This circuit is so great. It's got elevation changes, it's got fast corners, it's got slow corners. You've got to have that set up down to a T to be able, so it suits your driving style perfectly. Speaking to a couple of drivers just before the race session went live this evening, and they're all saying that every single setup, every single driver's got a different setup. No one is driving the same 2 setups because everyone drives this circuit differently. It's such a difficult circuit, and there are some big memories that I have of this place. Back when Grand Am was a thing a few years ago, the Michael Shank Riley DP doing a stoppie going down the hill in the chicane corner, and there are a lot of incidents that have happened at this track, and this track is one of my all-time favourites.
Yeah, definitely is a memorable moment as qualifying is underway. We've had some of the first times come out there onto the board. Zach Campbell, currently provisional pole with Michele Constantini on that front row with him provisionally, but we've still got a good couple of drivers to set qualifying lap times. The 20 of Mario Teixeira, Matthew Ugolotti, and at number 10 still yet to set a time as well. And we also still have fast times yet to come in from the drivers of what looks like actually Henry Bennett is completely done for the day in terms of his qualifying. He will start no better than 5th place on the grid, and so is Espiti as well in P number 6. So your big shots in this series not really qualifying on those front 2 rows. So it'll be interesting to see how they work their way back through the field. But speaking of names, though, Ade Copa Lopez, that is a name you don't usually often see in this Verizon IndyCar Series field, but there he is, P number 11 in qualifying.
Ade Copa Lopez is one of those drivers you have to watch whenever we have Friday prime time, because he always turns up and he always puts on a good show, and he's always one of those drivers that can quite easily challenge for wins. A couple of names as well that are jumping out for me today, Connery, that I've never seen in IndyCar before. One of them is going to be Ross Rizzo from Down Under. He's an Australian driver, usually seen in the V8 Supercars and the V8 Scop Series. He's obviously having a go at IndyCars today, and there's a couple of other names as well popping up. Dennis Garrison, one of the drivers who we see in the Neo Series quite often, and Jamie Wilson as well, who will be providing us with some onboard footage during the race today.
Yeah, he will be. As we saw a great time there coming from Matteo Ugolotti, gets himself up into P number 3 on the grid. And currently the only driver that looks like they're on a lap right now is George Nugent, the driver of the number 21. Just coming through what is going to be the final sector of the lap here. It just goes up and down like a roller coaster as the track starts to tighten on its way through the final couple of corners, through the left now, and it's going to be a run to the line for him. Also a lap time can he set? Can he improve on P number 16? The answer to that one is going to be no, and I think he is the only driver currently that had the potential to set a lap time. Kinsella's on an out lap, even though it says on his second lap, so that one won't count. We have Javi Villa that's currently on a lap right now. Did a 107.041 that last time by. Currently good enough for P number 17, and the driver of number 18 will be looking to improve his position to not risk starting that far back through the field. So let's just see how this lap turns out for him.
Yeah, I think everyone's just getting those final few laps in. A couple of drivers that they've only set one lap, maybe got an off track on the second, meaning that they've invalidated the lap time. Not much time left as well to get that lap time in, just 30 seconds remaining in qualifying before we go down onto the grid. Full pace lap here today, so everyone's got to do a full lap of the Barber Motorsport Park. From practice, we were seeing times in the 104s, but the track has warmed up a little bit now. It's 45 degrees, so it just looks as though the fastest time we're going to see today is 105.7. I suppose that can be.
Yeah, and Javi Villa going to come across the line. Not going to set a competitive lap time there, so you'll stay P number 17. And I think that's pretty much everyone done in terms of their qualifying. John Downing has just messed up his second lap, so he won't be setting a representative lap time either, as the session will take itself over. We will get ourselves towards the grid. I just want to mention something about that temperature, because you said it's warmed up a little bit. It hasn't warmed up just a little bit. It's warmed up to around about 45 degrees Celsius out there on the track surface. So that is going to be very, very hot. So there's a potential for the cars to get a little bit slick out there.
Yeah, get ready for watching cars looking like they're driving on ice today, because it's just that temperature, especially with these cars we've found in practice as well. The first lap or so, you have to be very careful on the tyres. They are very slippery. The car is still very slippery and still getting dialed into the track. And I think it's also going to be interesting to see whether people take tyres at the pit stop. They could potentially do it if it was a colder track on the same set of tyres, but this hotter weather, they definitely have to take those tyres at that stop to make sure that he can get back across the line without having any issues.
Yeah, I think you definitely have to take tyres in this sort of situation. And, well, as a result, the hotter track temperature, it may mean that we won't see as many issues as we've seen previously on the first lap with the cold tyre situation that your drivers have to be dealing with. And that thing that's going to be benefiting them in terms of that is this full pace lap as well, to try and get some heat into those tyres.
Yeah, the full pace lap will be the drivers just trying to get that car up to temperature, get the brakes up to temperature, ready for turn one. Turn one is going to be extremely difficult going into there, and just, I think we could see a couple of incidents maybe, and everyone's just going to be maybe babying it. It's a 42 lap race. It's a long race yet.
Very long race, just the one scheduled stop though. Turn one doesn't really lend itself that much to too wide racing, and well, coming down in towards turn number 2, that's going to be a huge problem if these tyres are not up to temperature, as we do have the visor cam there from Jamie Wilson with the Racebar TV side by side. And he's one of these drivers that does race using a virtual reality headset as well, which brings a whole new experience to sim racing entirely. I've yet to get myself one just yet. I haven't even tried sim racing in a virtual reality headset just yet, but I do look forward to doing so at some point. But as the cars roll off of the grid right now on their one and only pace lap, this will be your grid for today's race. Pole position goes to the number 14 of Zach Campbell, and Michele Constantini will get himself on that front row as well in that Vortex Sim Racing car. You've also got Matteo Ugolotti, Syandra on the row behind. Thomas Sturm and Henry Bennett will line themselves up on row number 3 with Austin Espity, Simon Lynch, P number 8. You also got Daniel Berenson and Andrew Kinsella rounding out your top 10. Take us through the rest, Jack.
Ross Rizzo is going to be signing up 11th, and then one name you need to watch on throughout this race is going to be Adecopa Lopez starting in 12th. Liam Quinn is going to be 13th, and Dennis Garrison is going to be 14th. Joseph Burton Harris is going to be starting 15th, with Jordan Newcastle starting 16th. Yavi Villa is going to be 17th. 18th is going to be Jamie Wilson, who we were riding on board with just a moment ago. 19th is going to be Robert Grosser, and 20th is going to be John Downing. Final two cars on your grid is going to be Rayo Tixiera and Benjamin Gregory going to be taking up that large spot.
Yes, they are currently halfway through this first pace lap here behind the iRacing roof safety car. And, well, this track, in terms of its overtaking opportunities, you could say they're a few and far between with the lack of very heavy braking zones over the course of the lap, but we have seen some fantastic racing here in the past, maybe with the older versions of these cars, the DW12 and the IR05. Let's see how the IR18s fare around this sometimes very, very tight circuit to try and negotiate itself around. Pace car pulls in. Zach Campbell has one corner to go before he can hit pedal to the metal, and he does so. Zach Campbell off and away. Green flag racing here at Barber as the rest of the field will get themselves strung out. Here comes Ugolotti and Syandra side by side into turn number 1, but they have to get that one sorted out relatively quickly. In towards turn number 2 now, and, well, Thomas Sturm is trying to go around the outside there of Syandra, but gets himself filed back in line now for the run down towards the turn number 5 hairpin, the main overtaking opportunity on the brakes on this racing circuit. But everyone being a little bit calm on this first lap, just being careful with those cold tires, making sure that they don't oversteer off the exit of the corners, down into the S's now, into the corkscrew of turn number 8 and 9. And it seems like everything has been very, very processional there, Jack. That is very unusual for a first lap. But I think drivers are just taking it safe as Thomas Sturm gets past Syandra there, with Syandra making an exit, making a mess, of turn number 12.
Yeah, everyone just looks so they got for the first few sections of corners nice and cleanly. There was a little bit of contact between, I believe it was Javi Villa and Joseph Burton Harris. Burton Harris has got heavy front wing damage on his front left there, Connery, and I think that's already affecting his downforce. He missed one of the corners, I believe that was coming out of turn number 10. He just went riding out onto the gravel, sorry. But other than that, everyone else is off to a nice start. Zach Campbell got an awesome start at the front to be able to get that jump over Michele Constantini. Constantini is one of the strongest IndyCar drivers I've ever seen on an oval, and he's definitely showing why he's also one of the strongest on the road, and one of the best starters I've ever seen as well, Connery.
Matthew Ugolotti just overshoots turn number 5 hairpin a little bit. As you see a replay of what went on behind. I kind of regret calling out restart processional now, because I did not see that instant originally, but wow, that was a big one in sort of the rear half of the field there. Yeah,
it just looks as though there was a couple of audacious moves coming down into turn number 5, and obviously that isn't really going to work here, especially on the first lap. Everyone's still pack racing a little bit. Everyone's still getting used to their cars. Tyres are now starting to come up to temperature. Get ready for the lap times to drop and the fastest laps to be coming in thick and fast. Now, remember, everyone's still on a full tank of fuel, so I would expect to see lap times drop, but the tyres are also going to drop off in this searing heat today.
Yeah, and that first incident did involve the likes of the 6 of Liam Quinn, the 8 of Ross Rizzo, are down on towards the lane and don't look to be coming out anytime soon with how one car went flying through the air there. But on to lap number 3 already. This just proves how fast that these lap times are, especially at the front of your field where you're getting towards those 1 minute lap times. But as you say, not as fast as earlier on in the week because of the very hot track temperatures that we have right now. And gap still remains within around about 0.8 of a second from Zach Campbell to Michele Constantini. But Constantini just trying to work on making sure that gap doesn't get too far stretched out, as your front pack consists of around about 4 cars at this stage, all the way down to Thomas Sturm. And then you've got the likes of Syandra, Austin Espati leading that second pack, as this field is already starting to spread out a little bit, Jack.
Yeah, it just looks as though Henry Bennett as well hasn't had the start that he wanted. He's down 2 places, just gone off coming out of turn 12, and in fact, very close to the wall coming through turn number 13. Just managed to avoid it. He's going to lose 2 more spots there. He is now down to position number 8 by the looks of it, or position number 10, sorry, and I think that's just, he's having a bad day so far, Connery. He won't be wanting this. He's currently leading the championship, but coming on to lap 4, he's down in 9th position, and he's not having the start to the race he wanted. Hopefully he can come back up to the front.
Yeah, that won't help the point situation at all, as it was coming on the, what was the entry there of the right-hander in the middle of the lap there, and it's just can't run wide here because the grass is just so close to the track, not much runoff, not much curb that you can use on entry or exit, and it just results in, if you overstep your bounds, you're going to pay for it.
Yeah, it just looks as though some of the drivers are struggling with the track heat. I don't think many of them have tested so far in such hot weather, and it's very rare that we get a track temperature of 45 degrees. We have got a strong southerly wind today as well at 21 kilometers an hour. That could be causing some havoc with the crosswinds with these cars. Downforce is so important on these Indy cars, especially the IR18 where they have removed some of it. It's so aero dependent to make sure you can get that speed through the corner, and if you lose that aero, or if you could just get the slightest bit of oversteer, if you can't catch it, you're going to have a bad day at Barber because the walls are so close to the track in some places.
They are, as the battle for P number 5 and 6 is looking very, very close right now. This is between Austin Espetit and Simon Lynch, and Lynch really putting the work in here. Gained about a tenth of a second that last time by over Austin Espetit. Still not close enough to be able to make a move down in towards the turn number 5 hairpin just yet, but if this trend continues, he'll definitely put himself in a good position to be able to make that pass over the next lap or so. The other close battle out there on circuit is actually Ugolotti versus Sturm for P number 3 out there on circuit. Sturm followed so closely coming down into the corkscrew that I was afraid he was going to run into the back of Ugolotti there. Has a good run out of turn number 11. Now looking for turn number 12, but again, can't draw his car alongside. And this is where we get to start to talk about push the passes, unless Iandra goes for a spin, which he actually has done. That is the driver of the number 11 having a good couple of issues there coming through. What is we'll call the second exit section, turn number 12, turn number 13, up and down the hill. I think that was just cresting the hill there on exit that just unsettled the car.
So Andrew looks like he's already had a bit of bad luck. He's already a lap down, and he's just not having the start to the day he wanted. Thomas, that battle for third as well between Matteo Ugolotti and Thomas Sturm. Looks as though Sturm's going to have a look down to the inside into turn number 5. Can't get the move done. That logical Vortex driver is going to want to get up into third, start chasing his teammate Michele Constantini up in second position. If they could get a 2 and a 3, that would be an awesome result for Vortex Sim Racing here today at Barber. But just looks as though Thomas Sturm is waiting for his moment to get past Matteo Ugolotti, but Ugolotti is not going to let that place go hard.
Exactly, and the drivers do have a couple of tools in the cockpit to be able to try and negotiate these overtakes. You can use your push the passes offensively, giving you better drive out the corner, better top speed down the straights, and then perhaps complete the move on the brakes into one of these corners. But at Barber, there aren't really that many long straights for you to be benefiting all that much from the push the passes here. Of course, you can use those push the passes to defend as well. So it's also a whole nother ball game when you start to try to manage how many that you have during the race. You only have a set amount, and it's just a case of, do you use them early to try and gain positions, or you do wait and make sure you have some in reserve for the latter part of the race to try and defend the position.
If I remember correctly, I believe it's 10 push to passes you get throughout the race. Might be a bit more with this new IR18. I know in the real world it's a certain amount of seconds. I cannot remember how many they have in the Verizon IndyCar Series. It's one of the things that I always seem to remember, then forget when I really need it. So it's definitely something I think Matteo Ugolotti was using as well over the last couple of laps, Connery, looking at his driving style as Thomas Sturm looks down to the inside into 11 and 12. That's not somewhere you want to be putting your car up the inside, because it's such a difficult corner to get the power down, especially with the elevation change. The elevation change can really unsettle these cars, especially if you've got a lot of power going through those rear wheels, and these cars are not short on power.
Not at all, as we're heading on to lap number 8 of 42. So these laps are ticking by relatively quickly. Sturm still on the offensive up and towards turn number 2. But he's not even able to get alongside, let alone be able to complete the pass on Matteo Ugolotti right now, as that's because of his attempted move down in towards turn number 2. He's still going to look for turn number 5, though, just showing the nose, diving down towards the inside to try and put off Matteo Ugolotti. But this track is really, you can try and make that pass in towards turn number 2, but if you get it wrong, then your opportunity into turn number 5 is basically compromised.
Yeah, also looking a little bit further back, battle for 5th position is going to be between Austin Espartee, Simeon Leach and Ade Copa Lopez. Copa Lopez is already up 5 positions from where he started within the first 8 laps, so he's having an awesome race. Probably a little bit of an issue in qualifying, couldn't get the speed just right, but now he's on it. Look at Simeon Lynch as well. He's going to be round coming out to turn number 12. Just looks like what I said about last lap, Connery. Too much power, and that elevation change just unsettled that Team Bushwick Racing car.
Not the first driver to fall foul to that little bit of a crest, and probably not the only one either. So Simeon Lynch of that Team Bushwick Racing team has got himself into a couple of issues, gets himself back out there on circuit there with not much damage to the car and not really impeding any drivers behind, so he'll get himself off and away, albeit what was going to be, I believe, into P number 9, as he has another issue coming out of turn number 4 there. That car isn't very happy at all from the way it's handling. Gets a little bit of a slide through turn number 5 as well, so possibly another issue with in terms of overheating those tires after that spin, and that's going to be tough to cool down now because of that hot track temp.
Yeah, the tyre temperature is going to be so important. You overheat those tyres just slightly, they're going to start falling off the cliff, and you're going to be wanting to pit around halfway into this race so you can get the new set of tyres on and sort of split it half and half between this race. Ade Copa Lopez as well has already closed the gap between him and himself and Austin Espartee, now just half a second. Austin Espartee is going to have to defend hard from Ade Copa Lopez, because Copa Lopez is, I think, the only pro driver in this race, and he is definitely one who will attack until he can get the position.
Absolutely. Not really a driver that we're all that used to seeing in this series, but pretty much in every series that he competes in, he's usually somewhat competitive. That's how versatile he is with the top iRating in this entire field. It gives him the number 1 car as he tries to lock onto the back of Austin Espartee, which you call more of a veteran of this Verizon IndyCar Series on the iRacing service. But right now, he is getting absolutely reeled in by Ade Copa Lopez. There's a spinner ahead. That's Constantini with a little bit of damage as well. So this was a driver that was running P number 2. And we'll have to wind things back to see what happened to him. I think he did it all on his own coming through the corkscrew. And that was on the brakes there, just trail braking into the corner. Car just stepped out, wasn't able to recover. Skips himself over the curb as well. And actually didn't pick up that... he did pick up that little bit of front wing damage, bashing it on the curb through the corkscrew.
Yeah, replay up on your screen now, and it just looks as though a little bit too much speed into that set of corners, and that's such a hard section of corners. That's where the Michael Shank DP did its stoppy a few years ago, as I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, and that's an uncharacteristic mistake we usually see from Michaela. He's usually one to keep it nice and consistent and nice and clean, but he's only dropped down to 5th position, and I think he'll find he'll be making his way back up towards the front.
As long as that damage doesn't cause him too many issues, he has a little bit of a damaged front wing there on both sides of the car. So that is going to be an issue for Constantini for the rest of this first stint. He can, of course, get that front wing replaced in the one scheduled stop that we have here at Barber. Around about lap number 20 is when you see the pit windows start to open. So that is when the drivers will come down for the fuel for the end of the race, and of course some fresher tyres, especially with the very warm weather that we have. Ade Copa Lopez, though, still aggressive on the attack right now. Austin Espartee trying to defend with what he has in towards the penultimate corner now. Has to defend on the outside line. That will become the inside line for Espartee. But Copa Lopez using a push to pass out the final corner. That much is obvious. Side by side in towards the first corner, and there's nothing that Espartee can do about that one, Jack.
Espartee had nothing to answer there to Ade Copa Lopez. Copa Lopez just used his push to pass well and just managed to get him on the exit of the corner. That's what he needed to do. I think had he tried to do it coming down into 14 or 14A, I just don't think he would have got the move done. And definitely coming off the final corner onto the main straight, it definitely helped Ade Copa Lopez for himself, and just using that push pass to get the move done. That demotes Austin Espartee down to P number 4. That leaves him in the clutches of Michaela Constantini, but Constantini, I think that damage might be affecting him just a little bit, especially in straight line speed. Especially, we're running quite a high downforce package here today on these cars, so they're going to need that straight line speed, all that they can get in any aero damage, and that is going to affect their handling like hell.
It is, and right now, well, that last time by, he ran a 1 minute 8.3, whereas before he got that little bit of damage, he was running in the high 107s. That could be just a couple of tenths of a second that damage is affecting him. Let's see if that trend continues as he heads his way across the line onto lap number 13. This will give us a better idea of what his pace is like right now. Yeah, a 108.7 that last time by, so that damage definitely affecting Constantini. He's even dropping off the back of Austin Espiti as well, and Espiti had to have a car come through on him with that last time by, so not really a situation that you want to be in if you're Constantini, but you've got to look towards those first, those first and only set of stops right now. Maybe coming down a little bit early just to get that front wing repair.
I think all he needs to do is get to the opening of the pit window here today, and he will be fine. Just get that front wing replaced. It's going to be a longer stop as well. And as soon as he gets that replaced, he can be back out and setting the blistering lap times that he was. At the moment, your fastest lap of the race is going to go to your leader, Zach Campbell, someone who we haven't really talked about so far today, Connery. His fastest lap is a 107.163. Haven't touched the 106s just yet, but he is out in the lead, and he has what looks like a 5-second gap over Matteo Ugolotti, who is in second place at the moment.
Yeah, 5-second gap that's going to extend to around about 5.5 seconds as they head their way across the line. Zach Campbell just absolutely flying out there on track right now, and doesn't look like anyone can really stop him at this early stage, but we've still got about 28 and a half laps to go, so it's not done yet for the race lead. Even with the 5.5 second gap, those pit stops can definitely shake things up, but the closest battle out there on circuit right now, or at least for major positions, is the number 3 of Dennis Greason versus the number 9 of Jamie Wilson. So let's see if the Team Chimera driver of Wilson can lock onto the back of Greason and try and sling one down the inside, perhaps at this turn number 5 in the next couple of laps. He is running lap times about 0.3 of a second faster than Greason at this stage, and this also gives us an excuse to use his visor cam once again.
Yeah, it's an awesome shot having that, and it just gives you viewers at home a little bit of immersion as to what it's like to drive one of these Indy cars. The IR18, it's a completely different beast to the DW12. It's the same chassis, I believe. I think there was a bit of a passing maneuver going on a little bit behind Jamie Wilson there. It's the same chassis as the DW12, but it's a new aero kit for this year, and I must say, it looks spectacular and it drives so well. Jamie Wilson as well, it's going to give you such a good insight. There you go, on your screen at the moment. You can see all of the details on his steering wheel and just see how much he's having to work that car. Barber Motorsport Parts is really one of these places that really challenges the driver.
It is, and maybe one disadvantage of having the visor cam for Jamie Wilson is that everyone can see how many pushed passes he has left. So maybe that's just the risk that he has to take there as number 9 machine continues on his way down in towards turn number 5. A little bit of a reply that last lap from Dennis Greason. Even though the time was still lost, it was only 0.5 of a second that last time by instead of 0.3 of a second. So Greason replying, trying to defend that P number 8. As he did start P number 14, so a good couple of positions gained by the number 3 driver at this moment in time. Let's just see if that trend continues. It's behind there's a little bit of scrapping. That was Yavi Villa and Joseph Burton Harris having a little bit of a scrap coming through the corkscrew, and Burton Harris now looking very, very aggressive indeed, and maybe a little bit too over aggressive there coming through the turn number 12, turn number 13 section there, almost running into the back of Villa, as Villa's car doesn't look healthy at all. It's just getting so squirrely out of the corners, sometimes squirrely in the middle of the corners, so that car not dealing well with the hot track temperatures. Meanwhile, Burton Harris, his car looks to be on rails right now.
Yeah, it looks as though Javi Villa as well just lost a position to Simeon Lynch on that last lap, and I think he might lose another one in just a moment to Joseph Burton Harris. He's got that car down to a T, as I was saying earlier. That setup has got to be perfect for the driver, and it just looks as though Joseph Burton Harris has managed to get his setup working perfectly up 2 positions on where he started today. He's currently running P number 13, challenging P number 12, and a little bit further behind. Not really much going on behind these guys. It's all happening up ahead. Jamie Wilson, Dennis Greason, that battle's still going on, but at the moment it just looks like Greason in the virtual motorsport car is holding off that Team Chimera driver of Jamie Wilson, and Jamie Wilson will not be giving up easy trying to get that P number 8. Zach Campbell as well, might be worthwhile talking at him. His lead now over Matteo Ugolotti is 4.3 seconds. He's just sitting out there at the front, just minding his own business and setting lap times.
Yeah, saying that gap isn't the biggest that we've seen it. We've seen it around about 5.5. It's down to 4.2 right now, so This is either Zach Campbell just trying to manage the gap out there, not really trying to take all that much out of the tyres, trying to make it last throughout this first stint, and then he can have a relatively comfortable second stint there, as long as Ugolotti stays around about that amount behind. But one driver that isn't comfortable right now, that is Dennis Garrison, pushed a little bit wide on the exit of turn number 5. Allows Jamie Wilson to close back up just a little bit. But the current overall trend is Jamie Wilson is the faster driver out there on circuit. But Garrison, he has enough of a time delta here to try and defend.
It just looks as though Jamie Wilson was around 7,000 or 700ths of a second faster last time round, so not much in these two guys. I have seen about a half-second difference on previous lap, Connery, but Jamie Wilson is managing to keep that gap. It's currently 6/10 between these two drivers, and I don't really think Dennis Garrison has got much to answer. As soon as Jamie Wilson can get up to the back of him, uses his push to pass, like Ade Copa-Lopez did on Austin Esparti just a few laps ago, and I think Jamie Wilson will be through.
Contact behind, Yavi Villa around, and I think once we look at the replay of this one, I think the fault lies with one very, very obvious driver from behind there. That's Joseph Burton Harris, ran straight into the back of him on the apex of the corner. You could say he wasn't expecting him to be that slow through the corner, but with the wider entry, you're expecting your apex speed to be higher than someone who doesn't take that wider entry, and I don't think you can excuse that one, Jack.
Well, Joseph Burton Harris has got half his front wing missing. That car is going to be handling like a pig. He has got to bring that down onto the pit lane, get that repaired. We're nearly halfway in this race. We can do it. 24.5 laps remaining for that driver at the moment, and obviously we're now coming on to lap 18, approaching the halfway stage of this race. And Joseph Burton Harris, that car, he's got to get that repaired, because you cannot drive an IndyCar with half a front wing, let alone the damage that he probably, I think he might have already had.
Yeah, exactly. So let's just see how well he does. Doesn't seem like he's going at 100%, which you kind of expect if they don't have half a front wing. So we can expect the likes of George Newjox, John Downing, which are the cars currently behind, to get rather quickly onto the back of that number 4 car. But didn't come down towards the lane that time by, so probably waiting until the fuel is okay to come down for just one more stop instead of having to take 2 and take a splash and dash at the end. So that's probably the plan right now for Joseph Burton Harris. So I can expect him down around about what's going to be the next lap, I believe, is just enough in terms of the fuel to get himself to the end of the race. But in terms of the rest of the race, Ugolotti, Ade Copa-Lopez, that battle has closed up just a little bit over the last couple of laps. Copa-Lopez is absolutely flying right now, 107.8 that last time by. And if that continues to be the case this time by, which it most certainly does, in fact improves by quite a few tenths of a second, a 107.398. That is even faster, quite a margin faster, around about 0.4 of a second faster than your race leader right now. So Copa-Lopez, he's on a charge.
I tell you what, actually, in the closing stages of this race, I think Ade Copa-Lopez might be able to close the gap between himself and Zach Campbell. And if he does, that is going to be a comeback drive of the greats. And Ade Copa-Lopez is always one of the drivers who really does put on a sterling performance. And he's made his way up 9 positions of where he started now, Connery, and he's going to get more. I almost can guarantee it with 22 laps remaining. As he managed to get 9, I think he could win this race.
So that's the call that we're looking for. Ade Copa-Lopez, potential race winner right now, especially with the pace that he has behind the wheel. But he has one obstacle to get over. Well, first, that's Matteo Ugolotti, and then it's this. Actually, this comes first. It's the pit stop window. Ade Copa-Lopez dives down on towards the lane, and the rest of the leaders kind of stayed out. Zach Campbell stayed out. Ugolotti stayed out. Austin Esparti also stays out. So does Michele Constantini. Henry Bennett, the only driver inside of the top 6 that also decides to head their way down towards the lane. So aggressive early stop here for Ade Copa-Lopez. He'll go up and down on the jacks, take that fuel, take the tires for the end of the race, and he'll be off and away and trying to make that undercut work on Ugolotti.
Yeah, it just looks as though Ade Copa-Lopez took tyres, so I think that is going to be the normal formality throughout this race. Henry Bennett does the same thing. Another car down onto the pit lane. I believe that is George Newcastle from 12th position. So the Vortex Sim Racing driver is going to bring himself down onto the pit lane, stop in his pit box, get himself some new boots for that IR18, and back out onto the track he goes. Benjamin Greggy, another car down onto the pit lane. Robert Grosser and John Downing, the other two drivers fighting with George for that position, they have stayed out. So the strategy is going to be interesting now. Zach Campbell, your leader, is also going to be down onto the pit lane. Matteo Ugolotti is going to inherit that lead because he stays out.
Ugolotti does stay out, and I would have thought he would have been down on towards the lane immediately to try and cover off the undercut from Adicoba Lopez, but he decides to go for the leading laps instead. So Ugolotti, your current race leader, with your pit leader, with your other race leader down on towards the lane, Zach Campbell. So is Austin Espiti and Michele Constantini as well. So those drivers will look to get their one and only service before the end of this race. Espiti gets himself stopped in his pit box, so will Michele Constantini as well. Try and get that front wing repaired. I think we'll see if the new front wing goes on that number 13 machine after he comes down off the jacks. It will be a front wing change for Constantini, so that's going to suffer. He's going to suffer a little bit in terms of his stop time, but he won't be suffering any more in terms of his lap time.
Yeah, I think that's definitely going to help him. I'm not really sure how much longer his pit stop was compared to everyone else. Just having a look over my timing screens. Actually, it was comparable to one of his teammates, Robert Grosser. No, that's not Robert. Austin Espiti, sorry. So I don't think he's lost him any time there, Connery, but it's definitely going to help his lap times now, and he can try and gain back some of the time he's lost with that front wing damage.
He can, as we're still waiting for Matteo Ugolotti, Andrew Kinsella, Janice Garrison, Daniel Berenson and Robert Grosser to head their way down on towards the lane. And I think Ugolotti, if he's going to have any chance of covering off Adicoba Lopez here, he needs to come down this time by. He didn't even come down that last time by either. So I think we'll definitely see Adicoba Lopez get his way by Ugolotti once Ugolotti comes down on towards the lane. So I think this is, for Ugolotti, I think he's just thinking about the grand scheme of things rather than the immediate threat from Adicoba Lopez. Adicoba Lopez was already faster, much faster on comparable tires, so I think he's just seen it and just thought, there's not really a point in me covering this off. I'm just going to make sure I have fresher tires for the second stint.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what he's doing. He's also going to have a slightly lighter fuel load as well. Be interesting if he now comes down onto the pit lane. He's now heading through those final sections of corners. Does he hang out wide? Yes, he does. Matteo Ugolotti is going to come down onto the pit lane this time to get himself that only pit stop that he needs. Andrew Kinsella, I would expect him to follow. He's quite a long way behind, actually, so we're going to be waiting a little bit to find out. So Matteo Ugolotti down onto the lane. It'll also be interesting to see what his stop time compares to everyone else. I'd probably be the same because of the tyre change, but that he's going to be taking a little bit less fuel onto that car, making his car
Coba Lopez around. Oh my word, on what is probably one of the most crucial laps for Coba Lopez, he bins it, coming through turn number 12, turn number 13, doesn't hit any barriers or any other cars, but I think this will result in Ugolotti potentially still keeping that P number 2 on the racing circuit right now. Coba Lopez will head his way through the final corner. Ugolotti already on the pit exit there as Coba Lopez. That is a mistake and a half coming into 12.
That is a mistake and a half indeed. As you can just see, he hit that inside curb a little bit too hard. It launched that front left tyre into the air, and as soon as that came down onto the ground, it unsettled his car, and he just could not save that. Once that happens in one of these Indy cars, you're a passenger at that point. You're having a bit of fun in the grass, and that's an unfortunate mistake there for Coba Lopez, and something which he didn't need. He was having such a good race up until that point. I think the commentator's curse has finally got to him.
Yeah, I think it has. Currently at around about 8.5 seconds behind Ugolotti now, so that's a lot of time to be losing to the driver of the number 10, as pretty much everyone apart from Dennis Greason has come down on towards the lane, and Greason's actually going to stay out one more lap here, so Greason looking for that ultra long first stint to have much fresher tyres on everyone in the second stint. So let's see how that will work out for him. Did start P number 14 and didn't really have the best of starts either. So this might be a Hail Mary to try and gain positions fast and furiously, I believe, is the term that you can misconstrue the movie title into there for Greason.
He needs to come down onto the pit lane this time. His last lap time was a 1:09, and Zach Campbell, who's back into second. His last lap time was a 107.5. He is a whole second and a half slower than Zach Campbell, who needs to bring that car down into the lane. Battle going on between Adecopa Lopez and Austin Espetit. Adecopa Lopez obviously having that issue. He's fallen back into the clutches of Austin Espetit, and Austin Espetit will be wanting to make his way up into that 5th position. It will be 4th once Greason brings his car down onto the pit lane. We will find out in the next couple of moments whether he will or not. So that battle will definitely be one to look at. Dennis Greason does. Yes, he does. He hangs out wide and brings it down onto the pit lane. So he's going to be your final driver to stop today. Zach Campbell will re-inherit the lead as he rounds the final corner to cross the line to start lap number 26 here at Barber.
Number 21 of George Newdock's having a couple of issues. I believe this is on, well, down into turn number 5, in fact. So the heavy braking really catching Newdock's out there. Goes on the brakes, but the car just entry oversteered the car. Not really performing well on the brakes there for Newdock's, and as a result, goes for a little bit of a spin. But luckily, no one else caught in that one. Just some time lost there for George Newdock's, but Espetit and Copa Lopez, that is a battle still going on right now. As Copa Lopez, after that spin, that car doesn't really seem to be behaving well. Overheat the tires due to the spin, and now Espetit with the fresher rubber locking onto the back of Copa Lopez right now. So this is pretty much a mirror of the battle that took place earlier on in the race. This time, Espetit is the one looking to be on the charge. It's completely reversed this time, and Espetit getting a little bit loose coming out of the corkscrew. Not something that he needed. He needs that good run on that Copa Lopez, but Copa Lopez just looks as though that car isn't handling right. Maybe he locked the tyres a little bit. Small flat stop, as you said, overheating the tyres, and that's going to take a few laps for them tyre temperatures to come back down and the grip to come back into those tyres. So Austin Espetit is going to have to work him to try and get past, but also behind. Michele Constantini also wants into this. We're going to have a three-way battle for position number 3 before long. Yep, we are. Three-way battle coming on to lap number 27 of 42. Another slow lap there from Adecopa Lopez, a 108.4. And, well, still technically a slow lap from Austin Espetit, a 108.5 as well, but a fast lap from Michele Constantini behind these two at 107.9. So Constantini looking very quick at this stage just after the stops, but he still has 2 cars ahead that he needs to get past to get back in towards P number 3 for a driver that started P number 2. So he really has his work cut out here. I don't think he's going to get back to P number 2, but P number 3 looking very possible for Constantini. I have no doubt in his ability. He is an extremely quick driver, and the young Italian will be furious at his small mistake that he made earlier on, and he will want to make up for it. He will challenge all that he can to get back up towards the front of this field, back onto the podium today. Obviously, they do get 4 drop weeks in this series, but Michele Constantini won't be letting this week be one of them. Yeah, that's one of the things the drivers have to keep in mind. You do get a couple of races that you can drop if you have bad results or you're not able to make this main strength of field race. So you don't have to worry too much if you have a couple of bad results here and there. But if it's a constant stream of poor finishes, that's when you have to start to worry. But Constantini looking to try and score as much points as possible in the strength of field race. Strength of field is currently around about 4,000 iRating, so that's the average iRating of this entire field, the highest average iRating of the entire week here in the Verizon IndyCar Series. So the driver is looking to try and score maximum here if at all possible. One driver that's currently looking like they'll score maximum is Zach Campbell, but that gap is sitting around about 2.2 seconds right now, with Matteo Ugolotti saying incredibly quick lap times, a 107.5 there compared to Zach Campbell's 8.3. Just looks as though, yeah, Matteo Ugolotti is finding some time in that car. But it also looks like Zach Campbell has got a little bit of traffic in front of him in the form of, I believe that's also Benjamin Gregory in the number 22 machine, currently running down in 15th place. He's going to let Zach Campbell through on the inside. Good choice there, Ben. Matteo Ugolotti is going to have to find his way around, but that gap for the lead is now back down to 2 seconds. So Matteo Ugolotti, he's going to give it a bit of a weave into turn number 5. Let Ben know he's there. Oh, he looked like he was a little bit loose coming into there. Still managed to save it, but he is definitely on a charge to get up towards the front of this field now. Yeah, as Gregory will get himself well out of the way, not wanting to interfere with this lead battle at all. But even with that little bit of a slide, Ugolotti, he lost about 1 or 2 tenths of a second, but he's just gained that all back coming down on the brakes in towards the corkscrew. So he got back down below a second now. So Ugolotti is absolutely astonishingly quick right now out there on circuit, but it's still a 2-second gap that he has to make up. But looking back to the Kobe Lopez, Espiti, and Constantini battle, this one has just spread itself out just a little bit. Kobe Lopez, even though he's not showing the pace that he had late on in the first stint, he's still managing to keep Espiti at bay here, running about 1/10 of a second faster that last time by, but Constantini's still closing in from behind.
Constantini is the fastest out of all three of them. He set the fastest lap on the last time round. This time round he did a 1:08. He's a little bit slower than the two guys ahead of him, but he's not that much slower. I think it's just a case of the traffic might be starting to play into other people's hands at the moment. That these gaps have stretched out a little bit. It's currently 9/10 between Kobe Lopez and Austin Espiti, and then 8/10 between Espiti and Constantini. As Constantini looks like he might have gone a little bit deep into turn number 5 there, but just riding on board with him looks like he's nice and smooth with the car, and that's what you need to be around here. It's not a track where you want to attack this car very heavily, because it will punish you.
It will, as he does skip over the curb a little bit, at least for the first curb there through the corkscrew. But he manages to get away with it, with the slow-down penalty at all, which you can get coming through that section. It's a little bit touch and go whether you'll get one skipping over the curb, but I think Constantini has gotten away with it right now, as he completely makes mincemeat out of the turn number 11, turn number 12, turn number 13 apexes, and that just drags him right up to the back of Espiti now. It seems like Constantini really loving those high-speed corners, allowing that downforce to work at its 100% potential, and now those tyres are really working well for him as well. Espiti's just lost so much time over the last couple of sectors. Constantini now poised to make an overtake, and perhaps not this lap down into turn number 5, but definitely at some point over the next couple of laps.
Henry Bennett as well, he's in 6th position, not too far behind these guys, but Michele Constantini have a little bit of a lock-up again down into turn 5. Clearly not liking that corner at the moment, but Henry Bennett, he's setting lap times faster than the two drivers ahead of him, so he is someone to watch out for in the closing stages of this race to battle up towards P number 4. Kobe Lopez has managed to start pulling away from Austin Espiti now. He's starting to set quick lap times again, so those tyres have obviously come back down into temperature range and are giving him the grip that he needs. But Michele Constantini just 8/10 behind Austin Espiti. This battle is not going to be letting up. The only other one I can see on through our field at the moment is this ongoing battle between Jamie Wilson and Dennis Garrison. Looks like Jamie Wilson was able to jump Dennis in the pit stops, but Dennis will be fighting back against Jamie to try and get that position back.
Yeah, these drivers relatively equally. 108.243 for Wilson and 108.221 for Garrison, as Garrison tries to drag it up to the back through the penultimate corner, but is a little bit unsuccessful in doing so. Let's see what lap times are. Well, he just went over the curb, over the grass there, did Garrison, so that lap time is going to be a 108.5 for Garrison and 108.3 for Wilson. So Wilson stretching that gap with the help of a little bit of a mistake through the final corner for Garrison. So Garrison has to be a little bit careful with the absolute complete lack of runoff here at the circuit. Not much margin for error at all. So if you step a foot out of line, that's going to spell big trouble.
Yeah, I mean, this circuit is so unforgiving. You make a small mistake and it's going to bite in whatever car you're driving around here, especially in these Indy cars. Barber obviously plays host to one of the biggest, the first road course event this weekend at Barber as well. So it's fitting that we're here, really, bearing in mind that the IRL Series is going to be there this weekend, and that's going to be an awesome race to watch. But coming back to this race as well, Jamie Wilson just looking like he's using all the track that he needs to hold off Dennis Garrison. That battle is going to be staying as it is for now. Back towards the front, Michele Constantini, Austin Espiti. That battle has met a stalemate, but Henry Bennett as well. It looks like he's closing in pretty quickly behind. He's now 1.6 seconds, 1.4 seconds back from Michele Constantini.
Yeah, and looks like that gap was reduced by about 2.5 tenths of a second that last time by for Henry Bennett. So the driver that has won what was technically the other strength of field race so far this week, the one at the very beginning of the week, still, well, not really finding much pace in P number 6 at this moment in time. You usually see him running much nearer the front than that, but there's a little bit of traffic that Espiti and Constantini have to deal with. That might drag him back into things here, but the thing is, Gregory got himself well out of the way as being rather courteous lap traffic there with Espiti and Constantini. Let's see if the other drivers will also follow suit, as Kobe Lopez still trying to break away from this second pack. Did a 107.9 that last time by. So definitely working on putting those laps in, working on putting those fast tires in once those tires have come down in terms of temperature from their spin. There's another 107.8 that last time by. So I think this is a combination of two things: those tires coming back down to temperature and Copa Lopez saving tires early on in the stint.
I mean, we're within the last 10 laps now, Connery, and I think Ade Copa Lopez has just saved his tyres for the end. Not really sure much more what damage he can do up towards the front of this field, because Matteo Ugolotti is around 13 seconds up the road. It's just, I think that's too much for him to make up in 8.5 laps now for Copa Lopez, but I think he can definitely get away from Austin Esparti, who's going to have stiff competition behind from Michele Constantini, who's really pushing the limits of the curbs coming through the corkscrew that time. But do not count out Henry Bennett to come in and get involved in this battle, because he is a quick driver. He might be struggling here today a little bit, but I definitely think he can close that gap and maybe get involved in this scrap.
Yeah, maybe he could. It's just a matter of if Constantini and Esparti start fighting, Bennett will be dragged right back into this. Esparti did miss the apex slightly of the penultimate corner, but gets himself sorted out for the final corner. Not too many issues to be talking about there, as Constantini at 107.934 last time, Esparti 8.1. So another couple of tenths of a second taken out by Constantini. It's just a case of he can't do much with that right now, because he's stuck in that little bit of a bubble of dirty air where he can't really get close enough to make any overtaking moves, but he's still faster at most other parts of the circuit.
He is clearly faster at most other parts of the circuit than Austin Esparti, but Michele just cannot get the move done. Barber is so horrible to try and get a pass on, because the corners are so reliant on you going through and using all the track possible to get the maximum speed out and ready for the next corner. And the only place that I can really see him doing it is here and sticking his nose down the inside and leaving Esparti in a really difficult position. Coming through this section of corners, you need to be single file, otherwise, as you see, actually these cars are getting slightly loose coming over the top of the hill. They're not even close to each other, or you can do it out of this final section of corners, out onto the main straight, out down into turn 1, because that corner there is very hard to go 2x2 into, especially with the long right-hander, which is turn 2.
Yeah, there are a lot of corners around this racetrack where if you make your way down the inside, you're basically relying on the other driver to make the decision between having a crash or not. Basically, it's basically a case of forcing them to back out of the move, apart from what is going to be down into turn number 5, so which is going to be this corner. This is where you can make a more conventional and perhaps fairer overtaking move on the brakes, but everywhere else on this racing circuit is a tight run of things indeed. Doesn't really promote side-by-side racing, but Constantini, he's got to not worry about that right now. His main objective is to get past Austin Esparti using whatever means possible within the iRacing Sporting Code.
Yeah, I think he's just going to use every single trick in the book that Constantini has, and I think he's going to be able to get that move done. The battle between Jamie Wilson and Darius Garrison as well, that's still ongoing, but he's still at a stalemate. Garrison cannot find his way past Jamie Wilson, but Michele Constantini, he is going to be he's struggling to close that gap. He's using different lines to Austin, showing that he's got a slightly different setup and his car is working in a slightly different way, but he just cannot find his way past Austin Esparti. And I think with 6 laps to go, Esparti has got a good chance of holding on to this position.
He has a very, very good chance, especially when you pull out about 2.5 tenths of a second that last time by, because Constantini really can't be dealing with the dirty air that you're throwing off the back of that IR18. Of course, this is reduced compared to the DW12, but it is still an effect that Constantini has to be concerned about, especially with the high downforce sections here at Barber Motorsports Park. But right now, I think you have to start thinking that maybe Constantini has taken a little bit too much out of his tyres, and he's paying for it right now with them not really working well late on in the stint.
He's still got 5 more laps to go, and if he's not careful, those tyres are going to become very slippery, and they're going to become almost impossible to drive on. And if that happens, he's going to either be left in the clutches of Austin Esparti, or he's going to be having a bit of a play in the grass and with the wall. Oh, he almost did there. It was so close. He was very lucky to hold that. Michele Constantini showing why his car control is one of the best on iRacing, I think. And I think he's pushed those tyres a little bit too hard, and I think he's now paying for it.
He is, as the lap time once again very slightly in favour of Constantini that last time by, but it is pretty much negligible at this stage, the pace difference between the drivers. So Constantini's starting to not really find the pace he had early on in the stint with the fresher rubber, taking a little bit too much out of them. So he needs to find basically what is metaphorically another gear to go into now if he wants any chance at taking P4 at the end of this race. And he also has to be slightly concerned about Henry Bennett behind as well, even though he isn't closing in at, well, what is exactly a rate of knots here. He could definitely play a factor if the pace definitely falls off in these closing couple of laps. So we're looking at around about 4 laps to go right now as Zach Campbell heads his way across the line with what looks to be about 2.4 seconds is the gap between race leader and P2. So Campbell and Ugolotti not really close enough to be fighting in the dying moments unless something happens to Campbell. But here comes Constantini and Esparti. Constantini has actually had a good lap that last time by, so if he follows through turn number 1 through turn number 2 now, he could set himself up a move coming into turn number 5. But look at that, he's just pushed all the way out towards track, towards the outside of the track, coming through turn number 2. That's basically spoiled his move, or the setup for the move into turn number 5.
Yeah, I just don't think he got the run that he needed off turn number 2 and over that blind crest. And I think that's also something that we need to talk about quickly before the end of this race. That blind crest just after turn number 2, that is through turn number 3. That's one of the hardest corners on this circuit. If the car will get slightly light coming over the top there, and you will lose grip. You have to know how to control the car at full throttle to be able to get all the speed that you need coming up to turn number 5. Michele Constantini, he's still there. He's still within half a second, but I just think he might have lost the chance. 3 laps to go now. Zach Campbell is going to be coming across the line to start his third to last lap. And not too long, but Michele Constantini, he's looking down into the second to last corner, but he's not close enough. You cannot put a move there from that far back for it to be safe.
Yeah, it requires a setup move rather than a opportunistic move for Constantini at this stage. He needs that run out of turn number 2 and the run all the way down into turn number 5 as again he takes that wide middle of the corner there through turn number 2. Maybe benefiting a little from a bit of a later apex there, but I don't think that is really the optimal line through the corner for his car right now, as it seems obvious that he was much slower than SPT coming through that section. I think he's better off following, as long as the dirty air effect isn't too much, he's probably better off following in the tyre tracks of SPT through that section and looking to get that move done into turn number 5. But right now, it really isn't looking on right now for Constantini.
Just watching him compared to Esparti coming through the corkscrew on that lap, he was taking such a different line. His line off the corner was so much tighter. And oh, look at that. He's gained a lot through turn number 11 and 12, coming up to 13, 14 and 15, the final few section of corners. Is he going to be looking down to the inside coming into the second to last corner? No, he's not. He's going to sit and wait. Coming up into turn 15, the final lap. We have 2 more laps remaining for these guys. And Constantini clearly isn't giving up, but Austin Esparti looks like he got a good run off of the final corner into turn number 1. Michele Constantini had an awesome opportunity to just stick his nose up the inside, and I think he might have another one here again coming off of turn number 2, coming down over that blind crest.
Looking for the late apex again, but doesn't really get any apex that time, so he's going to drop back another another tenth of a second or so in towards turn number 5. Will make up that time back into the brakes of turn number 5, but again, he gets so loose coming off the corner, and I think that could be the end for Michele Constantini right now, because Henry Bennett looking very, very vicious behind. He sent his blood in the water after that little bit of an oversteer moment for Constantini. Now Bennett has an opportunity to try and take P number 5.
The blood in the water is red and the blood in the water is strong. Henry Bennett is going to be looking to try and get himself past Michele Constantini in the closing stages of this race. Constantini made a mistake that he didn't need to make. He knew that Henry Bennett was this far behind. Austin Esparti, though, is still within sight. They're all in a battle with each other. He's just a second behind Esparti, and he's got Henry Bennett just 4 tenths behind. Bennett could use his, if he has any pushes to pass remaining, he's going to use them on this final lap. Just white flag flies. 1 more hit to go here at Barber. And Henry Bennett, he looking like he wants to get past Constantini, but I think the gap might just be a little bit too big now. Although, as I say that, Henry Bennett's inside line coming through turn number 2 compared to Constantini's wide line clearly is a more favourable one.
Yeah, I think that inside line is definitely the superior line right now, at least in terms of Henry Bennett's cars. He goes so deep on the brakes into turn number 5. The move definitely wasn't on there, so completely outbroke himself into 5, and that's pretty much ended this battle for P number 4, 5, and 6 here. So that is, well, pending further instant, that is the order that will come across the line. It looks like Zach Campbell, he's coming out of the final corner. Zach Campbell, that is very, very dominant for him, takes the checkered flag here at Barber. 42 laps complete, pretty much all of those led by Zach Campbell. Matthew Ugolotti will head his way through to finish P number 2. Adecopa Lopez, what was a topsy-turvy race for him, heads himself out of the final corner and across the line to take P number 3 after starting P number 12. Still a fantastic race for him, but oh, what could have been if he didn't have a spin earlier on in this event, in the middle of this event. Espati holds on for P number 4. Constantini, P number 5. Henry Bennett gets himself across the line for P number 6. Wilson will get himself past Dennis Greason to take P number 8. So Greason will have to settle for P number 9. Burton Harris comes across the line for P number 10 as well. It was looking like we were going to get a grandstand finish for at least P number 4 there, but it seems like Constantini took a bit too much out of the tires. Henry Bennett took a bit too much out of the brakes coming up in towards turn number 5. But this is your official finishing results for round number 6 at Barber Motorsports Park. Zach Campbell, which with what looks to be a very dominant race win, even though the timing sheets only say they were 3.4 seconds behind. Well, 3.4 seconds was the gap to Matthew Ugolotti. That gap did fluctuate up and down, but it seemed like Zach Campbell was always the one in control. Adecopa Lopez finishing P number 3, 18 seconds behind your race leader, but we've already gone through the fact that he had that spin in the middle of the race that could have spoiled his chances to take the race win. We'll never know. But Austin Espati will hang on for P number 4. Michele Constantini, P number 5. Henry Bennett comes home P number 6, exactly where he started. Andrew Kinsella, P number 7. Jamie Wilson, P8. Dennis Greason, P number 9. Joseph Burton Harris will round out your top 10.
P11 is going to go to Daniel Verizon, and 12th is going to go to John Downing. 13th is going to go to Robert Grosser with his Vortex teammate just behind him in 14th. Benjamin Gregory is going to finish 15th, and Yavi Villa is going to be your final finisher in 16th. Non-finishers today are going to be Simeon Leith, Mario Tixiera, Thomas Strum, Sayanja, Ross Rizzo, and Liam Quinn. That rounds out your 22-car field here from Barber.
Yep, we will, as we'll go for a very, very quick interview here with your race winner. That is Zach Campbell. He's standing by with Jack Stiles.
Zach, first of all, congratulations on that win. That was absolutely dominating. Were you ever worried about Matteo Ugolotti sort of giving a bit of a challenge from behind mid-race?
I was worried about the entire race because the setup that I built, it was fast, but it wasn't the most stable setup in the world. It drove like a sprint car on a road course, which it was bad fast, but I mean, it was very hard to drive at some points, and I nearly lost it a few times, and I know that's where Matteo got a lot of time on me.
And just very quickly, take us through what it's like driving one of these IR18s in such the hot weather conditions that we saw today at Barber.
Oh, it's an absolute blast. The tires go away really easily and really quickly, and that just makes it a lot of fun to drive and slide around, just be able to really feel out the car. No matter what your setup is, you'll really feel just what the car's doing all the time. iRacing did a great job getting this car out, and, you know, especially just all the detail around it. It feels amazing.
And before we let you go and celebrate your win with your team, who would you like to thank today?
I'd like to thank Austin for sharing his Laguna Seca set on the forum, and so I could just make some edits on it, and Nexus Esports for taking me on the NASCAR side of things, and really helped me improve as a driver over there too.
And that is going to be your race winner from today here at Barber Motorsports Park from Birmingham, Alabama. Zach Campbell, back to you, Connery.
Yeah, man, it was a relatively comfortable race win for Zach Campbell, but further back through the field, there was quite a lot of excitement with Adecopa Lopez making his way through the field. The various battles between Espati and Constantini. You've got Wilson and Greason having their own fights as well, but that is all we have time for here on RaceSpot TV and iRacing Live. Mr. Hugo Luis has places to be. That's the person behind the cameras, behind all of the directing as well. I've been Connery Maddock. That's been Jack Styles with me in the commentary booth. That has been round number 6 at Barber Motorsports Park for the iRacing Verizon IndyCar Series. Join us next week where we head to Fontana, Auto Club Speedway. You don't want to miss it.